Yeah. It's interesting.
In my kitchen, Christina.
You have to recreate that.
All right, it's 5:15, folks.
Dang,
Let's call this meeting to order. You guys on board? Ready, we're ready. All right, we're on Zoom, I think, right? Yes. So let's call the meeting to order and got the roll call.
Yes, one.
All right. 4 of us are here.
Sorry, my computer was not set up. So, Chair Hottinger.
Chair Hottinger's here.
Oh, Hottinger, I'm sorry. I've been saying it wrong.
It's, you know.
Vice Chair Newman.
Here, present.
That's the Suzanne.
Tom Wells.
Tom is here, right, Tom?
Yes, I think so.
Christina Patterson.
Here.
You're checking up on.
And Kimberly Keith. Absent. You have an extra Brian, so.
Yeah, okay.
I printed out and left on my printer. Okay, great. Let's take a moment to review the agenda for today.
If we could take the minutes off, I was sick last week and I didn't get a chance to finish them. I'll have them on the next one.
Okay, so amend this agenda to remove the minutes.
Please.
I move we approve the agenda.
Well, I have one amendment here.
Okay.
This is a letter.
So don't you, how do you do that? Let's ask Sam.
Just with a motion and a second. You can just approve the agenda with the removal of the minutes. And it sounds like he might want to amend something too, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we got our letter today.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're gonna add this down under.
New business or whatever it is.
Yeah, we're gonna see that.
We can make a new business.
New business item,
You just,
a discussion point.
Okay.
So do I have a second?
Yes.
All right. Great. So how's the agenda look?
Great.
made the motion.
I made the motion.
You did, okay, thank you.
I just say one thing, if we just put in every agenda like new business or discussion, then we don't have to like formally add it
Okay,
to the agenda. We can just, at the time it comes up, we can add those things. Okay,
okay, great. So,
Mark made that permission. Approval, okay.
Yeah,
any other corrections to the agenda?
I have a question for Christina
Oh.
said, you said make a new business section.
Yeah, and that
Right,
would cover, you know, people that.
I thought we had.
We used to.
So the way the agenda is set up now is actually in the ordinance that you can easily add an action item for just add a discussion action item.
Action.
Oh, so
You can change the sections, but you can add one.
Okay. Great. All right, make a motion to approve the agenda
Yeah, a second. With that amendment.
with the amendments, the action
Okay.
item discussion point. Okay. Great. All
All in
right,
favor? Yes.
all in favor?
Yay. Aye.
Any name?
Abstention.
Thomas.
What? Tom's an abstention. You didn't see.
All right, so item number 1 on the agenda, update from town meeting with Corey and Nikki. Let's see, Mark, you and I were there.
Yes.
That's right. What can we share?
Well, both Nikki and Corey are still I don't know what the word, challenged by the gray area of who owns who maintains the right of way trees. That's their biggest challenge. Who maintains those trees? And how do we get them, we, the collective we, meaning them, the tree board, the owners of the trees themselves, and the caretakers of the trees. So it's 4 entities. How does the collective we get this job done? That I think is their biggest concern. And it's been an issue for 5 years that I've been on the board. So that was my biggest, we talked about a lot of other things. We talked about planting trees in the park and how they're gonna get watered. We talked about that last time. It's going to be up to them. There's gonna be no volunteer organization that can use the existing Stewart ditch water to water trees in the park. It's gonna be a wagon and a bucket, or whatever that ends up being.
Say that again, there's gonna be no,
There's gonna be no volunteer group
got it,
way to get water to trees in the park,
Right.
unless it's a wagon and a bucket. Because we can't use the existing tap that they use.
yes,
There's too much
Correct.
liability to.
Too much pressure.
Yeah, let one, some unqualified person to use that system.
what about a sump pump straight into the channel there? Just kidding.
Well, yeah, you could. Find a way to plug it in.
My 100-foot hose, okay.
All right.
All right,
So we discussed that. We discussed any new tree plantings that they want to take on the responsibility to water that.
Yeah,
And we didn't go into that at great length because we just, I'm just leaving it at that.
yeah. We discussed planting trees where there's water. And yet, even, I think you brought that up, maybe Tom or somebody, that just because there's water doesn't mean the new trees are getting enough water. Right? So we'd have to assess that, but at least there's water, some water in place. But yeah, right? I mean,
Supplemental water is what we need.
supplemental water.
And we talked about watering trees, new trees, especially in the winter. It's very important.
Yeah,
And most people don't get that. Here in the desert, you gotta water December, January, February, March, if we don't get the rainfall and the snow, which a lot of years we don't.
right.
So we talked about new trees and water, and that's kind of been something we ping pong back and forth for a long time.
Right. Okay, so we also talked about the Co-Tree view and making sure they have access to the latest inventory data, which we're going to talk about that later today, item 5.
I can add one more thing.
Yeah,
So Corey asked if I would, this is what I'm gonna talk to you, just drive the streets, basically from, I'm gonna get my streets wrong. I'll just say 1st to 5th, from Grand to Rio Grande, just kind of the central block
Yeah.
of downtown. So I drove all the streets.
okay,
And he showed me a couple issues behind the building here as examples of what needs to be taken care of. They're basically getting limbs need to be 14 feet above the public road and 9 feet above sidewalks. So he and I looked at a couple issues out here, and I just drove the streets. And I think most of the pruning collars are already set up on these trees, and they just got to be cut at that collar. And-
That's
and-
easier said.
Exactly. But that's what I observed, and I haven't told him that yet. That's what I observed. So I don't know how much they can do or how much that needs to be hired out, contracted.
so how much work did you see that needs to be done?
For someone that knew what they were doing and had the equipment, I'd say half a day. I mean, there isn't that much. There isn't that much, but it's high enough that, a citizen on a stepladder ain't gonna do.
Right, no, you need proper equipment.
You need
Right.
Proper.
Okay.
And again, that goes back to who pays for the cost,
Right,
the proverbial gray area.
right, okay.
So I haven't reported that back to Corey. And we also talked about, Corey has this application that he can go to a tree anywhere in town, a public tree, a town tree, and can pull up that tree and then like an assessment protocol.
Mhm.
And he and I were gonna go over that, just an assessment protocol that he can look at and say, yes, 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 no, 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 and get a quick assessment of that tree. He needs to make time for it, and I told him just to call me and we can schedule it.
Mhm.
Did you use anything?
There should be easily, I mean, we could even use code tree if you want.
I mean, I think that's gotta be what he's looking at,
It's in there.
right?
No,
I was looking at it today.
it's a separate app that he has.
Interesting. Right there.
Huh.
Yeah. But yeah, there's all sorts of apps that help you get to maintenance. It depends on what software.
He uses it for other things.
Was it iWork?
Say it again?
iWork?
He uses it for other things.
But iWorks, I know is a popular.
He wants to
Public works.
put a tree assessment in this existing
I
app
think
that he
he's
uses.
probably talking about iWorks. They're in the process of populating that with all their
Okay,
information.
I know that.
Because they can do work orders
Yeah.
out of it and all sorts
I
of
thought it was a
stuff.
great idea.
No, I know that there's lots of softwares out there to help municipalities
Mhm.
schedule their maintenance needs or assess their needs.
That's all I have.
Okay.
It's always good to meet with those guys.
I mean, there was a discussion about emergency trees, that they're gonna just take care of it. And then beyond that, the right-of-way trees, we're moving towards dialogue, with the tree board to get some input. And so that sort of is gonna carry over into I don't guess we have the update from our meeting with Stefan
That's
on here.
here, is it?
It's not on here, is it?
But we can kind of combine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's several key points I want to make. Backing up, Corey and Nikki wanted us to look at a tree at Lee's Park, which Tom looked at, Mark looked at, I looked at different times. And then another tree up by Mountain Oven, sort of in the Apple Valley, in the creek there. Tom and I looked at that, right?
It's in Minnesota, isn't it? It's hanging in the Minnesota Creek. The original
just
exposure.
half of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that tree, it was box elder, or what was that tree?
Box elder.
Box elder, okay. So that one has such a carving out that it looks like a risky thing, especially each season, right? It just keeps digging out and it's a lot of weight. So I think they're gonna put that on the removal list,
Okay,
right?
I don't know.
And
That's what I recommend.
that's what we
Yeah, I think that's
recommended.
what needs to be done, because you need to remove it and then maybe bring those roots down or pull them out of there somehow, so it's not up. The problem with these trees is it overhangs the creek and kids could get in underneath, and if it would collapse.
Right,
It's a liability issue.
it becomes a liability.
And there is the same thing out here he showed me. There's a huge spruce tree in this parking lot out here. Huge tree, and the same thing is happening. But the roots are stabilizing the bank of the, I think that's Paonia ditch.
Yeah, you looked at that tree?
Yeah.
I looked at it too.
I mean, there's nothing you can do. I told him maybe head-sized boulders, possibly you could stack those up and. I
Have
don't
you
know what
looked at
that's
that,
gonna
Tom?
do.
No.
Yeah, I just think water's gonna keep eroding that, and I don't know if a boulder wall would do anything.
The concern about that tree is in the wind, that people are seeing it move quite a bit. And I mean, I looked at it, I'd like you to look at it, see what you think.
Yeah, I really don't know what to do, and spruce have shallow root systems.
Yes, they do.
And wind's gonna do that when you got almost a quarter of it exposed.
Yeah, right, okay, so that's on we'll make that happen. And then the Lee's Park tree, the globe willow, I think Mark and I talked about it with Nikki, and I think they're gonna try to, instead of take it down, clean it up and see, because it does look like there's still
I think that tree hadn't been very well maintained over the years, it just hadn't been pruned regularly, so. Yeah, thus it had all that dead wood in it.
Well, here's what I tell people, and again, I'm talking to you. I tell folks about globe willows. You can spend, or just willow trees in general, you can spend $500 to $1,000 a year, every 2 years to maintain that thing, or spend $1,000 now and get rid of it. I tell them, spend $1,000, get rid of it, get a new tree growing in its place, so in 10 years, you got this beautiful tree, and you still aren't spending $500 every couple of years to maintain the globe willow. Plus, that globe willow is encroaching on the ash.
It's an
that's
ash.
next
It's on
to
the
it.
ash and then it overhangs the playground. too.
I would say remove it, but,
That would be fine with me. I don't have a.
because it's a globe willow, I mean, it's still healthy,
Yeah, it looks healthy.
It looks pretty good.
but it's what tree would you rather keep, globe or the ash?
That's
Well,
it.
yeah, it's just, it's such a, it provides a lot of shade, I'm sure, in the
Mhm.
summer there. You know, could have 10 good years left.
No.
No?
There's only 3 trees in that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they gotta keep them all in a
No, but
way,
if-
and that needs to be obviously planted there.
But if you got rid of the globe,
Yeah.
that ash could expand a
Yes,
little
that's
bit
true.
and give shade.
Right.
It's a catch-22, because it's still a live tree.
Get a catalpa in there.
All right,
So we kind of tabled that one, they weren't gonna move, but they're taking 4 trees out of the town park, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Eventually, yeah.
right,
Now, they're all slated, so
Yeah.
they know those 4.
right.
Maybe we get like some red marker tape instead of the green,
Mhm.
like, you
Yeah,
know,
red
it's
to
like
go.
Next time
camouflage.
we'll just
Yeah.
stop down and buy something.
Yeah.
I think, you know.
All right, so, and then the meeting continued talking about sending out notifications using, what was the system?
Well, there's the text gov, but it's also the water bill, the utility bill.
Is that what Nikki was working on language for that? Yeah.
Yes. Stefan said that could happen as long as it was less than 25.
Yeah,
So like
so-
2 or 3 cents.
So that, the intent of that was to inform owners that have trees in the right of way, that is a responsibility, and to communicate with, the town, right? Just to inform the town, and then. Oh.
I just wanted to update you and let you know those are gonna go out with the next bills, so she got that language to whoever it needed to, so the next bills that go out, that'll be on there.
Do you know?
No,
Yeah,
we talked about it, but we don't know what exactly.
That'd be nice to see before it goes out.
I told her to text us with it, we haven't.
Because,
I have it, I
oh,
think.
okay.
Can we read it together?
And there's only so many characters,
Right.
so.
Like 25 or something.
Yeah, way less than 20.
Water your street trees, you own them.
Well, it's almost like an experiment with this thing, because I think they're gonna give them maybe till the end of April to do this. And whether they do it themselves and hack it up, or whether they get a hack tree trimmer to hack it up, we're gonna find out what's gonna happen. I don't like the experiment, but.
I think it's a bit
gonna-
abrupt because all of a sudden people do not know, and for decades they don't know what's going on with that, and then
I
they're
agree,
like
I agree.
Yeah,
challenged to, yeah.
So we talked about all that.
so when is the deadline for that, would you say?
Contract reports are filed last 2 days of the month.
It goes out? Oh,
We uploaded to the print vendor 2 days before. post.
okay, so we have some time to work on that. What's that?
It's for the bill, that's one, but the text my gov, how do you,
Yeah,
that can go out whenever.
yeah, what we do with Text.gov, if you have a long statement, we
Uh-huh.
create a web page on the website, and on Text.gov, we say, hey, here's a statement, here's a link, you can click on it and go see it.
That might be nicer, then we can bring ourselves to
So I will, I'll send this messaging to you guys, and then we can, circle back with Nikki. And, pretty short, but. Okay. Great. Anything else on item 1?
Do you want to combine the meeting,
Yeah.
Stefan?
Right. Right,
I can start that.
start that.
So we had a great discussion with Stefan, and a lot of it evolved around ownership. I shouldn't say ownership, of code and maintenance of right-of-way trees. So I wrote this up to start the conversation. And I read this to Steph. I called it town assets and the 100-year-old paradox. I used if-then statements. If the town considers the right-of-way trees to be a valuable asset, then it will promote the health of the trees. However, currently, if the town considers the right-of-way trees to be a valuable asset and the property owner is responsible for their maintenance and the property owner uses the least expensive means to maintain, then the trees risk damage, decline, and increase liability to the town. So then I gave them good, better, best. A good solution would be the property owner gets permit, which outlines what work needs to be done, how and by whom. If not followed, faces a fine. These are just really simple, good, better, best. Better would be the town splits the cost of right-of-way tree maintenance with the property owner. Best, the town takes over right-of-way tree maintenance. So the if-then I tried to point out, if we let a unskilled person trim a right-of-way tree that the city considers valuable, there's the risk that they're going to damage that tree and cause more liability issues. So the best would be the town just takes it over.
Yeah.
So that's what we discussed. And he didn't throw a red flag up.
No.
And so with that, I sent Nikki and Corey the code revision that we all did. That's, not being written up yet. It's with Leslie,
Yeah.
or it's someplace in that whole,
In
yeah. So I just gave it to them, told them, this is what we wrote. And there's gonna be lots of revisions to that. But Stefan didn't took the red flag up and say, oh, no. I mean, it was a discussion. It's a good discussion.
Okay.
So he understood where we were coming from, of getting key people, knowledgeable people to prune those trees. And the permit process. He's very agreeable to all of that. We just need to get that in front of him.
Right. So that's a committee.
Yeah.
We're gonna get that in committee and we are going to start with that and talk about, how our budget could support some of that work,
Exactly.
as well.
In very creative ways by including the public and the public that is really into trees. I mean,
Yeah.
if we hold an open house and, give information and the people that show up and fill out like an application, like they want help from the town, and
Right.
get 1,000 or 1,500 for their tree,
And we
then
did,
we know that they're
Right.
that they're there for
Yeah.
that.
and we did touch a little bit on how we maybe failed a bit. Maybe is the wrong word. We have failed in community outreach and education.
Yeah.
And that's
but
something
as
we've
we
been talking
said-
about for a long time.
Yes, but as we said at the last meeting, it's like it was a catch-22 because
Yes.
we were always waiting to hear what the
Yes.
town could bring.
Yes.
And this is what we could bring, honestly. I mean,
Yes.
we said we would drive around in our trucks, watering
Right.
those trees that we planted,
Right.
but what can the town bring? Would you dig the holes? Would you
Right.
put the fence around there? So it's like, we've never gotten clear-cut information back.
You're right.
Well, it sounded like Stefan liked the idea of a volunteer watering
He did it.
subcommittee, or,
Yeah, why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
well, sure, but it seemed like in the past, there had been resistance to it, like supporting it. I mean, maybe with access to water. I mean, there's town park issues with water, but there were some other access points that we could utilize, right, for water? None at all?
It's gonna be,
It has to be it's just what boils down to, they can't have non-employees operating city equipment.
correct.
What's that, big water handle pump at the start of the town park? I mean, you can't,
They keep that locked, I believe.
right, but that's not accessing their little, nipples that come
No.
up from the lawn.
No.
That's like a straightforward
Yes.
thing that you can attach a
It's a tap,
hose to. A
yes.
tap.
Yes.
So why can't that
So
be
maybe that could be
specified?
worked
I
out.
think she said that we could work that
Yeah,
out.
can we borrow the keys and you come with
Yeah.
us? All
Right.
right,
I
yeah,
mean-
that could be.
That could
That
be,
seems pretty
significant.
reasonable.
yeah,
And,
okay.
and with that, I did forget to say, we also talked to Corey. He would appreciate a tree trimming instruction for the new town.
Okay, so that's gonna be on item 4, okay?
Oh, do we?
Yeah, we're gonna get there. That's what.
Well, but this is for town folks,
Oh,
separate from the pocket.
True, okay.
Residency.
all right.
It's just a matter of saying,
Yep.
let's do
Can
it.
we
Let's do it,
Here's an
okay.
hour, you can do this.
Time around.
Put some type on there.
Yeah. Oh, really?
It does.
All right, let's move on.
Yep.
We good with that, item 2? Website update? Is this you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you wanna, can we look at it here, or should we look at it here?
Both the sharing same thing.
Do you guys see this okay?
Yes.
I'm gonna be, I should apologize, but I'm not, I'm gonna be very critical of our website. And I did a real, and I've always wanted to discuss with John to get this changed, but we decided, let's just get it live, let's get it up there. What's your name again? It's not Yoko. Ruben just took what we had and he bounced it into the town website using all the tools the town website uses. So I'll let you just drive it over the whole page. I'll just give a quick.
I wasn't sure where to put you guys, so I put you under government, last country, family
Look
tree.
at that.
Okay. The logo that was on there as well as.
Yeah, so Ruben didn't, he just did what we told him to do, just take it and paste it up there. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna be very critical and I'm gonna go over stuff real fast.
Okay,
The homepage, way too much scrolling for a quick land. You gotta scroll way down to see everything on that page.
uh-huh,
Things need to be drastically changed. Trying to read my notes here. Yeah, so when you land on it, you don't want to have to scroll to see everything. That's not a good website. We don't need Paonia tree board 3 times. Paonia tree board in the logo and down here. We don't need that. That's gonna take up, that's gonna give us more space on the landing. Logo, yeah, let the logo stand. We need to revise that blurb. That's not really who we are. Some of it's good, some of it needs to be revised.
we need to,
Sure.
Is that a
We need
mission?
to
I
shrink
can't
the
read it.
boxes.
Is it a
Yeah.
mission statement?
We either need to, hey, there's no discussion, I'm just gonna tell you what's.
Yeah.
I tease.
that's good.
We need to shrink these boxes or get rid of them. And I'll give you a quick example. I don't like that there's, hey, what's?
I was just telling him you were Yoko after all.
That's funny, that's funny.
Thanks.
I don't like that there's, can you go up a little bit, Ruben? I don't like that there's a menu here and a menu here of links.
Yeah,
That's 2 places you don't need. that.
right,
And then at the very top, like if I'm on a page that says Paonia Tree Board, and I want to go home, to me, that would be back to Paonia Tree Board. It doesn't mean going back to the town website.
yeah.
Anyway, just little things that I landed on
So,
that I didn't
I
like.
have a question.
Yeah,
So if, obviously, there's lots that we can change. Ruben, are you able to change that, or do we need to?
Yeah, you can just email me what changes, revisions you want, and I'll take care of it.
yeah, I didn't say that. We
Yeah.
talked
The
about
one thing
that.
I told Mark is that I have to preface is that we have to follow the accessibility guidelines by the state.
Yeah,
So we're limited to what we can do, like fonts, colors, things like that.
right,
So that's why it doesn't look exactly like the old site.
Yeah.
We're hindered by that.
okay.
So,
So what's the next step, Mark?
so here's my suggestion. Really, again, down and dirty, I wrote this 15 minutes.
Yeah,
This menu right here, to me, makes sense to go across the top of the page, because those are
yeah,
the main things we're about. If you scroll up a little bit, Ruben, please. Down, I'm sorry, I say that wrong. These things can easily be put into those
yeah,
3 headings.
Yeah.
So we can shrink all this stuff on this landing page, and people can hit a drop-down menu all about trees. And it can be our approved right-of-way trees.
so I make a motion that you
I knew it.
put your thoughts into action with Ruben, and then we'll have that next pass to give you, because it sounds like you put a lot of thought into it,
I did.
and you're, good ideas.
And I'll be 2 more minutes. Can you go to the Arbor Day page?
We trust you, Mark.
I know, but I just want to tell you what I see.
Okay.
And through all the way down. This
I did
is,
make some changes to the pictures too.
to me, it's like an amateur home movie.
Yeah,
There's just too much going on, you're gonna scroll way too much. And then this comes way at the bottom. This thing should be at the top, our poster context.
yeah,
And we need to revise that.
okay, great.
And then the same thing goes, is true for the, Siegfried Day. It's just like this whole movie, where you're scrolling through tons of pictures. For what? It can be concise, it can be simple, they can say what we gotta say and get it done. It just, and different sizes pictures, different text.
Yeah.
Nice.
So anyway, that's what I see.
It's a big step from where we were to here, and now
Yes.
you have another,
That's a great way to put it.
yeah,
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Yeah,
Ruben.
thank you too.
Page two, so.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
You'll have more accessibility with Ruben.
And it'll be less content to kind of maneuver, it'll be all in kind of 1 or 2 or 3 places.
And after each meeting, I'll update the tree board meetings page. where-
Oh, yeah, show them that, they probably haven't seen that.
So the last one has the agenda, packet, and video.
It's great. Okay, thank you.
Actually watch the video directly from your page.
Yeah, Ruben, thanks for meeting with us, that was great what you did, because it got us to this point.
At this point, I would suggest you guys also review it and let Mark know the changes.
Yeah.
are appropriate.
that sounds good.
So there is no second.
Is there a second on Mark doing this and getting this, working with Ruben to take the next pass?
Is this committee or is this just?
It's just a motion that Mark takes his thoughts and puts them in action, and then we can provide our input.
Second. Thank you. We're so strong.
All right, we're good with item 2. Moving on to item number 3, committee reports right away and park management plan.
So that's Tom and I are on that number 1. We haven't had a chance to meet, because Tom was out of town, and then I got busy, and we just couldn't meet, but what I did do is what I already said, I drove the main corridor of downtown, looked at all the trees that, branches that Corey wanted me to look at, so that's the first step. And,
Okay.
I think Corey and us will get together and talk about that, because I was telling Tom, I think I said to everybody that there's a half a day's worth of work, the way I see it, with a professional crew, and the trimming is fairly straightforward, because there's already a nice collar on all of these branches that need to come down.
Okay. Okay. So, is that's not the high risk? I mean, or they could be.
It's street right away stuff, so it's stuff that's gonna get hit by a truck or whatever, so it's better to take the branch.
So
down.
that needs to be a high priority.
Yes.
It's those UPS claims we're trying to
Minimize.
minimize.
Right. Okay, that's great. So half a day's work.
Well, and again, that's my assessment of a professional team,
Probably.
probably 2 guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you guys are going to then meet to refine that.
Yeah, we need to meet and I guess prioritize trees that need to be pruned, trees that need to be removed.
Yeah.
And figure that out.
That would be
And,
great.
and what Corey really wants this year is just trees to be pruned,
Yeah.
to get those scaffold branches.
Okay, sure.
And that's where, and I don't know if there's a whole lot that we can, you can't say, start here. I don't think we can number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just do them all, it won't take that long. That's what I think, but we need to get your eyes on it
Okay.
and see what you
So
think.
we'll set up the date.
Yeah.
Get it to go.
Yeah.
Someone doing some of this.
Yeah. That's, I thought it's gonna be that. These 2 this week. 2 next week.
Mhm.
All right, that's great. So that you guys have an idea to work on that, bring that back?
Yep.
And we can revisit that next month?
Yep.
Yeah.
It should be.
All right, oh, what did you work for?
So the permit process, who's on the permit process?
I don't think we really had people
Assigned to this.
assigned to that.
Yeah. Okay,
I think
so-
it'd be Christina and somebody.
So,
I was on that last
I
try.
know.
right. Well, where that stands in my mind is we developed the permit. We provided ordinance update suggestions.
In the code that we wrote, that we rewrote,
Mhm.
right? Is that what you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
And then that's in process.
Mhm.
And then, so the permit is tied to that, but in the meantime, how we could move forward. See, I'm a little confused about it because I think that we're wanting to send out with MyGov, like this idea of communicate. Like if you know, you need to communicate, because that's what the ordinance currently says, that right of way trees, the town is involved in that. In the right of way, right? Like in other
It
words,
doesn't really say the town's involved. The current code just says the property owner maintains it.
Mhm.
So our code rewrite suggested all of the stuff that we
Yeah.
want to do with the permit. So we have that loose language in our code rewrite about a permit process, but that hasn't been fleshed out.
is that right? I'm just trying to think, because it's the property of the town. Those trees are the property of the town.
Yeah, but
The town owns them.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess you could call that property, but the property owner maintains.
Well, I know that. But I think in that code, for right of way trees, I'd have to look at it again. But anyway, so,
I'm confused too.
yeah. I mean, don't you feel like that's already there? Because that's how we got involved when the elm on Third Street was gonna come down. When Corinne was the
Mhm.
town administrator, and the town had a say. The town had a say. So the only way that makes sense is if that's part of the ordinance.
maybe we just need to review it, but if we're looking at major ordinance redos, I think we have to wait and see how it all flushes out.
Yes, that's part of it. So
Right,
even
Before
if
we
we,
really do any,
if we do a permit
yeah,
process, I mean, it's gonna be adopted into the code right now.
Well, we had developed a permit, like we put a lot of thought into that, so it's already there. It's a matter of putting it into a process.
Before this new code is approved, is what I think.
Yeah, I gotta make sure that, yeah, I'm gonna check in with Stefan about that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, I'll follow up with Stefan on that, just to get any projection on the ordinance, like what can we expect? Is that something that's in process now? Is this a summer thing? Like when are we gonna get some feedback on that?
On what, feedback on what?
Well, the rewrites of the ordinance.
Yeah, I think that's a ways off.
So can we move forward on the permit process before that?
That's what I think, and Stefan seemed to think that could be adopted now,
Okay,
before the code is all approved and, melded into the. new
okay,
code.
all right,
At least that's what I took away from our meeting.
okay. All right, well, I will follow up with that and report back next month, okay?
Okay.
All right, moving on to item number 4, Arbor Day. So I did put out to Paolini K8, the invitation to participate in the poster contest, and they just slipped through the cracks. They ended up saying as much.
Can I ask who you talked to?
Well, initially, David Kuda,
Because he's in the hospital with cancer, he was, maybe he's home now. He had cancer,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
That's probably what happened.
Yeah.
And then I sent to Sam, the principal, and anyway, so they did it last year. We'll get them back next year.
Okay,
NIFSIS, we're gonna pick those up this Thursday.
Oh, cool.
I also emailed and called Montessori, shared all this data. I didn't get any traction over there. Have we had them in the past? Okay. All right, so. uh-huh. Okay.
Soon they're gonna be here.
All right. No, that's been put on hold for a whole year.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, so that's happening. So we'll gather those posters. We'll have a winner. We'll hang them in the town hall. We'll, I think we should take pictures and send them to the paper. They'll just see if we can get that in the paper. And then I'll mail those to Denver, to the Colorado Tree Coalition. But in this conversation, we thought with Arbor Day, we could plant a couple of trees in town park. Okay. We could do a planting workshop, open it up to the town, and then like some kind of education, right? So what were we thinking, Mark? Trimming?
Yeah, tree pruning, if there's any examples in the park, and tree planting. And that's for the town, that's for public works as much as it is for citizens.
So that's coming up the last week of April. So we need to get that, right? Like Arbor Day and Earth Day, same
Arbor
week,
Day, yeah,
22nd and 25th of April.
yeah, depends on which one.
So that's Saturday, maybe we gotta get something, get a move on that.
We need to choose trees, if we're just saying, select the trees and get them bought.
Let's get a pine tree for that corner of the entrance there, to the left, as you go in, to the left. There's a big old space there that we've talked about, putting that pine tree in there. Would be nice.
Where that one came out?
Uh-huh. Where that birch was, and that old birch came out.
Okay.
But we could also use this, not do this for the street tree yet. We can hold off for another couple months on the street tree, getting the word out, and we can get the word out for this Arbor Day on the town sites. Right?
Okay.
Before this whole street tree thing. Maybe this takes precedence.
Okay.
So we,
That's a good idea, right?
What you're saying is educate the town a little bit.
correct.
And
The
Yes.
options
Get
to
them
maintain
nice
their
and-
trees.
yes.
If we're gonna try to plant a tree, we teach them how to plant a price.
Well,
Yes.
yeah.
And then we'll have all the information, we can talk about it.
That's the idea.
No, that's a great idea.
So who's on the committee for finding out 2 trees to plant?
I will be on that.
Okay, so I make a
It's
motion.
gonna be a pine tree or a pine tree.
Christina is going to head the
Okay,
2 trees to plant for Arbor Day.
and a
That we
catalpa,
need.
of course.
I like that.
I do too.
Okay. I like all trees. All right, so, okay, that's good.
Okay,
So we're talking about not doing the messaging around the right-of-way trees until after. So let's focus on education. And then we can follow up with it.
is that okay with you guys if we hold off on the street tree, information getting out to the public and use it for the Arbor Day?
And Chrissy was gonna suggest that we can push out a text my gov notification as well for this event.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
The more people that are aware of it, I think would be better for you guys.
But which utility bill was this,
No, it's not, text my gov is not a utility bill.
No, but we talked about it going into a utility bill.
No, that's a
That's
different.
something different.
Yeah.
That's
Text
what
my
Nikki
gov is a
wrote.
text messaging system.
That's what Nikki wrote, though. She wrote about getting the trees pruned. So that needs to hold off, is what Christina's saying. Gotta hold off on sending that
We'll
out.
hold up on that one.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
suggesting we can use text my gov to push out a text message out
Gotcha.
to get more involved.
Got it.
Got it.
That's
Okay.
great. Thank you.
And then, let's see, so. Yes.
No, it's fine.
Well, my son's wrestling here, and I don't want to miss it. Okay. So I've got to go. My son's wrestling, and it's the last time he'll ever probably wrestle, so I want to see it. So I want to move us to item 5. You guys can talk about pros and cons there, and then Suzanne's letter, we're going to talk about.
Number 6, you already sent me that. We don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, I think the coach review, and I'll watch the recording, so, that, and then this thing about the elm trees. Okay?
Yeah.
And then I think, yeah, okay,
Go ahead.
Bye.
Don't worry about it.
yeah, thanks, see you guys.
So I'm gonna ask you, do you know Code Review very well? I don't know it. I've read their website.
Familiar with it, probably more than you guys are.
So here's my take.
Yes.
I don't think you have a quorum anymore, so.
Oh, we do, because we only had 3 last time.
Oh, that's right, okay, that's right, because
Okay.
you're chair votes,
Yay.
sorry,
Oh,
it's,
okay.
I'm used to the mayors and
I know,
voting,
right?
so it has to be 4, my bad, I apologize.
So here's what I see Code Tree View as when you look at their website
Uh-huh.
and you read everything about it. I'm gonna back up a little bit. We're a tiny town with a small budget. We intimately know all our trees. We know the park trees. We don't have new subdivisions going in to add a tree canopy. We don't have new business development that we need to think about pocket parks to add more to the canopy. Our canopy is pretty much replace what comes down. And that's all we have room for. So Code Tree View in my mind is for bigger
I
municipalities.
disagree.
Now, that's what I need to know.
I
That's what
disagree, no, I was in on initially when that Code Tree View was put together and the idea was floated 5 or 10 years ago.
Huh?
It was meant for smaller municipalities like Paonia to have a way, access to an actual tree inventory to keep track of their trees.
Well, how's that different than what Cammy does?
If she puts it on the Code Tree View, we just hired her to do the inventory for us. Then she downloaded that information onto Code Tree View.
I thought hers was separate.
No, it is not separate.
Well, there we go.
So that was the intent of Code Tree View. And then truly, a lot of CTC's programs are not intended for the larger municipalities. They are intended for smaller towns that have limited resources. I mean, I look at when my days in Broomfield, I had plenty of resources and I had my own GIS system and my own tree inventory. And it was different than some in our GIS department developed that. By the time I was leaving, I was wanting to push away from our in-house developed one to one of the ones that is available through Davy Tree or Planet Geo. They both have good tree inventory. The problem, it is still complex. I spent an hour or two messing with it today and trying to just download a spreadsheet. And then the spreadsheet is huge and it makes no sense to me. It's all alphabetized. It's hard to get it where you want. At least my logic of what I want to see. But I think it can be used if we need to.
So how would it benefit our town with our budget? And our-
Well, we'd be able, if we can zero in just on some certain aspects of that tree, like the tree maintenance,
Mhm.
the trees that are planted, trees that we can set up trees that are planting for spots. We can set that all up on.
So you can do a maintenance plan and a planting plan in Code Tree View?
Yes,
Is
you
that
can.
it? Ah.
Yes, it's all there.
Well, you don't see that when you first.
No,
see
you
all
have
that
to mess
stuff.
with it and you have to look at it. But I think for the cost, nothing,
What's the cost?
nothing. It's free.
How do they make the money?
It's subsidized by the state, I think.
Why is this on here?
Well, because Greg wanted us to sit with some salesperson.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I don't see a need for it. I didn't know.
I wouldn't mind sitting with a salesperson just to have
Yes.
them help us figure out how to manipulate that database.
So then I asked
That would
him,
be great.
could we do a dog and pony show during our meeting? Let's just have one meeting and she can, I think it's a she, can show us what the stuff does. and
That's
we
a
can all
great
look at
idea.
it.
Yes.
So I think he was gonna bring that up with.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's do
and whether
that.
it's a separate meeting or something like that, just to inform us on how it is. It's changed a lot since its infancy, but that was always the intent, was to provide.
Cause you don't see that at all when you read their.
No.
Wow, okay, cool.
And the whole intent was too, you had the whole state, so, I mean, I use Code Tree View Broomfield, because I just had some local parks that I put on it.
Mhm.
So people could go to a park look at the trees there, walk around the park and you use their GIS and say, oh, this is what this tree is. And I think that's a perfect tool that you can use with that. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So I think it's something we need to talk to them.
So I think we leave this then, that Greg will get a hold of that person and either we do it at one of our meetings or another meeting, but we have to notify the town if there's more than 3 people or 2 people.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. So we're done. We're done with that one.
How was that? Finalized budget. How was that? Do you have any?
Greg sent me a text. Everything's been finalized and there is money allotted to go to Public Works
Okay.
to help with their approval.
Okay.
We just need to discuss that more with Public Works
Okay.
as they figure out their budget to take care of all the low-hanging branches in town. So I
Low
think,
hanging fruit.
Yeah. Well, and the other maintenance being
Yes.
pest control or whatever, tree planting.
and that'll involve that committee that Tom and I are.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Suzanne, we all got your letter.
Yeah, but that's not, I talked to Greg on the way out, but the way this agenda is organized is really hard for any community members to come who want to comment. And I'm assuming people really don't come to the meetings. So I don't know why at the end you just relegate 3 minutes.
I don't
to each
think
member.
you have till.
Okay, but it would be really great if like after the agenda item, because I was writing notes and I'm like trying to figure out how I'm gonna get back to that agenda item. Of some of the things that you were discussing here. So I'm like looking at this scribble here, trying to figure out what was where. Okay, so you were talking about the watering and the maintenance and having volunteers for, okay, let's talk about the tree ordinance first. It's interesting because one of the candidates for town administrator that applied, that was not Stefan, I asked him about the tree issue in the town, and he said, normally you expect citizens to take care of the day-to-day and kind of like maintenance issues and maybe some of the, like if it's a low-hanging branch, it's like a pruning issue that they can do. But when you get to the expensive things, the things like our major pruning for health or whatever, or structure or breakage, or that's something that the town would take on. It's, you expect people to do, you know, the property, adjacent property owner, something that has to do with just kind of the day-to-day maintenance and care of things. And the town would step in for the bigger issues. So I'm a little confused when I hear you talking about, so I don't know if you're mixing the park trees and with the right-of-way trees, but when you're talking about having the the public works go around and prune up low-hanging branches, well, my understanding is that's what the ordinance was basically meant to be. It's keeping the trees off of the sidewalks, keeping trees off the streets. The ordinance really didn't address like the overall tree care as far as like the bigger maintenance prunings in that sense. So it's a little confusing because even when we talk about the downtown trees, that's in a right of way. So why aren't the building owners responsible, just like the homeowners are being made responsible? So I've always had a problem with that. It seems like the town pays for certain people, but they don't pay for other people. About the watering and the volunteer group, I think it would be interesting looking at, you know, if a homeowner is going to be responsible for something planted in front of their place, I mean, sure, it would be nice to get other people to come and take care of it for them, but why are people with mature trees being made responsible, but for the new plantings aren't? And the new plantings are some of the most easiest and cheapest things to take care of. You know, if watering's an issue, perhaps coming up with a water credit for the homeowner. You know, water prices are really high in the summer. Not everybody has irrigation, but if you pledge to maintain this tree, the town can calculate about how many gallons of water that might be during the season, and they could get a credit on their water bill, and maybe that would be like a town donation in a way. As far as the budget, I don't know where the town is telling where the money is coming from, but I want to say when that marijuana tax Occupation tax was passed by the voters. Everybody tries to say it's pot for potholes, but that's not what the question the voters voted on was. The question that the voters voted on actually say that that money can be used toward landscaping in the right of way. I made sure that was put in there. The infrastructure that Bo Nerlin, the town attorney at the time, assured us that trees were covered under that. So I don't think it should all be spent on streets and sidewalks. There needs to be a dedicated percentage of that, maybe 30% put toward right-of-way trees. I think the idea of doing a homeowner match is great, but I think if you're requiring permits, I think it should be carrots instead of sticks. So the permit might be, get a permit and the town will pay 50% of your pruning costs. You know, so people are motivated to get a permit. There's like a big financial motivation to get a permit for doing pruning. And then I'm kind of losing it here, and I'm talking about the major pruning, but you know, because that could cost $2,000-3,000 for someone to prune a big tree, and that's prohibitive for most people in this town. The state statute, if you look in the state statute, sidewalks, gutters, and curbs are the improvements that the state statute says a municipality can assess to the adjacent property. They do not say anything about trees, which thank God. So there has to be some sort of a motivation, because I've lived here for 24 years and I know there were a lot of older folks that I would see taking trees down in their right of way because they didn't want to have to deal with the pruning. They didn't want to have to deal with the leaves in the wintertime. They didn't want to have to deal with the maintenance. And so the question is, what motivation is there to have a tree when it could just be easier to take it out? Because, or, you know, I saw, wasn't there a trustee that just got a dead tree removed from in front of his house about 2 years ago? And I'm like, why did it die? It's because he never took care of it. So why do people who let their trees die get a free ride with tree removal? And people who actually want to maintain things have to pay. And I know there's been some trustees saying, well, it improves your property values. But that's not a strong argument to me. If people can't afford it, they can't afford it. And trees improve the entire town. They create the microclimate that we so need. They create a microclimate that young trees, new trees are going to need to even survive around here. And you know, there's a huge natural habitat that's in the trees. Okay. Let me see here. And so I'm kind of wondering about this code rewrite. I don't understand. I thought the code rewrite was mostly for glaring mistakes between like the building code, the zoning code, because there were some real mess ups in the code. I didn't see the tree ordinance as being part of that because it's basically there. So, you know, changing a tree ordinance could happen at any time. I don't see why it has to be. Leslie Klusmeyer, I think, was more trained toward like looking at the zoning code, looking at the building code, things where the code had actually gotten kind of messed up. And I didn't see the tree ordinance as being part of that. Yeah, I guess that's all the general comments I had. Oh, one other thing. I don't know if the Colorado grant is coming through this year, because I think they come through every other year. And this year, I think they came through last year. But my question is, why isn't the tree board asking for money? You know, BMW Rally always donates what, 15,000, 20,000, 10,000 to the town for something. They donate a significant amount. Is it 10?
About 5 to 7.
5 to 7. Well, maybe it has to go up because of inflation. But I know they paid to prune park trees once. I think this last year it had to do with the bathrooms down at Town Hall. But when I was thinking of the Colorado grant, it's like they're parking on our streets under the trees. And if you go driving down our streets, you see some pretty dead snags, and really dangerous things up there. And, you know, they all enjoy the trees too. So maybe, being prepared to, you know, have a proposal for them. Because the town will be trying to do something, so why not tree board, like, jump in and say, let's try this year. I don't think Rand is coming through this year, but I don't know what other organizations come through. Oh, and then another thing is, and it kind of leads into what I was asking here in my letter to you, which was kind of last minute. And when we're talking about day-to-day maintenance, large item maintenance versus day-to-day maintenance, another thing, you know, when you make a homeowner responsible for something, they're going to be using herbicides. They're going to be using insecticides, and they could very well damage a tree. I think I've seen some new plantings up Second Street. They were red maples. I don't know if it was the ground cover that was put on, maybe it's a watering system, but the zero scape of gravel makes really hot soil underneath. It can be a lot of hypertension there. And then they go on top of that and they just start spraying 2,4-D and excessive amounts of herbicide on the ground because they want to kill all the weeds that are coming up. And I think there are at least 4 dead red maples just past Dependable, and one that I think was kind of half dead. So, you know, it's a difficult thing when you're coming up with a maintenance plan. Who's doing the maintenance? You know, that's something that's really going to be important to come up with. And the whole cost thing is, it's like, since it's not on town, since it is on town property, it's like, why? Anyway, so with that in mind, I wanted to mention to you the scale that's on the elm tree at 932 Second Street. It's mentioned in Candy Long's tree report. When she went through and assessed all the trees, she noted the scale problem on this tree. She noted that dormant oil spray, which is kind of coming close to that time, because once the leaves break, it could burn the leaves. So it would have to be looked at soon, I suppose. I don't know what kind of dormant oil they use for scale, the hard scale. But it's impossible for me to treat at this point because I can't get imidacloprid anymore. It's not legal to sell in the state of Colorado. And there again, you know, I always felt a little bad doing that root drench with it because I know about the bee issues. And I heard from Dick Menamaker, who was the famous beekeeper that died here a few years ago, that it actually travels into the honeydew and the leaves that bees lick in the morning, the water coming out of the leaves. It's not just a blossom issue. So I always felt kind of bad, but then I was like, well, people who spray crops are much more guilty. But, you know, in this town, you know, people are concerned about bees. So doing something that's safe for the tree is really important. And yeah. So sorry about the last minute letter. I just dashed that off during the lunchtime. So anyway, but yeah, I don't know what you're doing with the ash borer, the emerald ash borer and the ash trees. But it would seem like if you're choosing one tree to treat, that would be, and you have a professional applicator coming up here, they could do a soil injection. Like Jason Jones did that on this elm tree like 15 years ago. But the problem was to put fertilizer in with it too. And I think the tree had way more growth than it should have had, because now it doesn't need pruning, but so it won't like crack anymore. Anyway, so yeah, so I wanted to bring this to your attention, and I'm not sure how we might address it.
This is really great information. Thanks for writing it all down. So we all have a vision, you know, we can read it and know what you're really asking for.
Okay, so is that like during the committee reports with the ROW and park management plan that you might talk about that? Because it sounds like you didn't really have anything tonight, so it sounds like the timing might be good for that.
And this
No,
is what.
We do have a lot with those two things, and that's what the town public works and us discuss
Yeah,
about how we can help them with their overload of
Yeah.
work.
So, okay, so do you see the public works being responsible for the right-of-way trees? Because that sounds like really almost like too much for them.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Since you've lived here a long time. So I've been on the board 5 years, and the way we all talk about this tree code is that the town owns the trees, but the homeowners are responsible for maintenance, right? Do you understand it that way?
Well,
That's what it says in black and white, but it's all gray to us.
well, it is a little gray, and actually that ordinance was rewritten in 2014, and Dave Bradford had a lot to do with that. And I was on the board at that time, and we voted that ordinance in. Of course, I didn't know about as much at that time, but I don't know what the original ordinance was. Carol, maybe.
Let's just talk about this.
I think it was a lot simpler, let's say.
Let's just talk about this. Here's my question to you,
Yeah,
because I've always wondered this.
yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but.
No. This is something I talk to everybody I can
Yeah,
about this. So the code states, town owns the trees in the right of way, but you're responsible as a homeowner.
yeah.
Do you think half the people in town were told that by the realtor when they bought that house,
No.
plus the $1,000 maintenance a year to maintain that
No.
tree?
So, can I
To
just
me,
say?
that's a problem.
Yeah, that is a problem, but I want to say the problem with the code is written by a bunch of board members and not really reviewed by an attorney. And I don't know if I trust our town attorney right now, but not really looked at by attorney and compared to state statute and what you can do. And what I'm feeling right now from the town is they're being incredibly punitive and with their codes and very restrictive. And that's a little nervous, makes me a little bit nervous, like just saying, oh, simple, just make you responsible for everything, or you can't do this and you can't do this. And that's not going to go very far with the townspeople. So I think it does need to be looked at and it needs to be clarified a little bit
So-
because,
I need to just stop for a second.
okay,
No, this is very good. So you agree that most of the people, when they buy a home down here, they don't know they own that huge 100-year-old maple tree in their right of way.
yeah, well, they
They have to
don't own
maintain
it, but
it.
they're responsible.
Yeah, you don't think people know that, right? That's number one.
Well, they know that they have to water it and maintain
No.
it that way. So what does maintain mean is the question.
The branches that are gonna fall and crush somebody's house, or crush some kid on the sidewalk, or crush some car.
I
They
think,
don't know they have to maintain the tree.
no, I think what it says, that's between them and their insurance or the town's insurance, but if you read that ordinance, haven't read it recently, but it specifies X number, branches have to be maintained, X number of feet, 15 feet above the lanes of travel, has to be 13 feet or 12 feet above the sidewalk. That's what I see the maintenance in the code as meaning. If you do cuts on the tree and the branch bark collar, it's all about that level of maintenance.
So
And
with
yeah,
that, do you think XYZ homeowner could do that kind of maintenance?
keeping it off the sidewalk, they might be able to, and they could hire someone that's not that cost prohibitive. Keeping it off the street, yeah. But getting up into that tree and doing a major pruning because there's dead branches up there, that's beyond people at that point.
But they're responsible for the maintenance of that
That's the
tree.
total maintenance.
That's the code, that's what it said. That's why,
I have to
Susan,
read it.
that's why we are rewriting that old outdated code.
Yeah,
Everything you brought up is old and outdated, and
Yeah.
we've rewritten it. And we thought it was gonna go to Leslie because there's some legal stuff in it we couldn't answer.
yeah.
So that's why it's on her desk right now, and it's a ways off. So
Yeah.
when you said it could just be adopted into the code, I don't think it can because there's some legal
Oh.
stuff.
I know what I'm saying is I didn't think it had to be part of the whole code rewrite is what I'm saying, because I thought, my understanding was that code rewrite had to do with land use code and the building code that was messed up in 2018
Well,
with
the tree code is not part of that because of some legal
Yeah.
stuff that it's
Yeah.
gotta go through somebody, and she's the one, I guess.
Yeah. I would suggest talking to Cammy Long. I'm sure they've, look at the state forestry department and say, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. Before we had, the current tree board, the town would rely on the state forester a little bit more, the state urban forester, Vince Urbina and stuff. I was actually on the tree board in 2003, 2004. But,
Part of the-
it was a lot different back then.
Part of our responsibility, we think, to the town is my if-then statements. If the town thinks the trees are a valuable asset, then maintain them. But it doesn't work that way right now.
Yeah,
It's up to a homeowner. If a homeowner's to maintain them, then a homeowner can do it any way he or she wants to. And that means they could do it themselves or not, or hire the cheapest tree cutter in the area. And that's just gonna cause more and more issues.
yeah,
And so that's why we like the town,
yeah.
just so you know, to own the trees and maintain the trees, not own them.
Yeah, I don't know how realistic that is in this town, but that's why I say, if you have an ordinance that says you have to, that's what I'm saying. If it says you have to get a permit, and the permit specifies a certain standard of pruning, the reward for getting the permit is the town would do a cash match for the pruning.
That was one of the options.
Yeah.
that I presented, Steph.
And I mean, it would be great for the town to pay for everything, frankly, because, but, at least a cash match would be great.
I appreciate hearing that, because that's what we thought.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, and because I just don't think if the town pays for everything, it's ever gonna happen. Anyway,
But all really good suggestions, thank
Yes.
you. And this is what we really want, is more people concerned about trees at your level. And coming here and making good suggestions, because then we're putting it all together, because even tree boards prior to this couldn't figure it all out. So it's
Yeah.
like, we just constantly need to keep
but
revising.
to do that cash match, you seriously have to look at the pot money.
Okay,
Because, I
that's
mean,
real, okay.
you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars. And then I know at one point Paige Smith said to me, well, how are we gonna decide who gets in on this?
I think it'd have to be divvied up.
It would have to be
Yeah.
divvied up, but I don't think you're gonna have people meeting
That's
down the
not-
door, because even if they have to come up with $1,000, you're not gonna get 30 people lined up in front of town hall, and it's gonna take a while to get warmed up.
In our discussion with Stefan last week, we brought that very thing up about that pot money and sidewalk money and how to get some of it towards trees. That very discussion came up.
Yeah,
So you're right on.
Yeah.
We can talk.
but I mean, legally, the town can. It just has to be, they have to have the will to do that. Anyway,
And it needs push from someone like us. you
Yeah.
Guys, to get it done.
well, it won't be for me, obviously, I think you guys have.
Well, but you're
You
pushing
come
us.
and advise
Yes.
us, you talk to us.
Yeah.
And then we're just an advisory
Yeah.
to the trustees, so then we advise the trustees.
So we appreciate it.
I will say one thing in the comprehensive plan, I was trying to get language in there about the trees. And, because it irritates me to no end when people say, well, it just improves your property values, and that's our impetus, it improves property values. Well, we already think property values are too high. So we don't wanna necessarily do that, but I think that when you're looking at climate change and the benefit that we can have locally to our healthy urban forest, it's gonna keep our summers cooler. I mean, it just has an impact that we aren't screaming about oil and gas drilling, we're not screaming at Washington DC, we're doing something right here on the ground that we can do, it's within our reach. And I think it's really important to look at it that way. We can contribute, it's a drop in the bucket, but it's something that we can do. It's good for species, it's good for, the trees, it's good for the animal, whatever. And good for us, it keeps old people cooler in the summer, keeps us energy from having to be wasted on air conditioning quite so much. It's really a beneficial thing. So one thing I do want to say to you guys, if you look at this new comprehensive plan, they're talking about shading and discouraging people from planting trees on the south side of a property, I think it was. On the north side of the property where it would shade their neighbors. I was thinking about more in the sense of buildings, because buildings don't have leaves that fall in the wintertime, and also evergreens maybe. But trees are really wonderful in that sense, because they do lose their leaves in the wintertime and they do let sunlight through, and then they offer that shading and that cooling effect in the summertime. And I don't know how it affects solar panels, but you might want to just look at that to see what the wording is. I don't have it on the top of my head, but see it how it aligns with the values of a tree city too.
That's good. We should look at that.
Yeah.
The master plan,
The master.
Tree,
Yeah. Yeah.
comprehensive.
Yeah, I think it has to do
Plans
with
for
some of the
trees.
restrictions for building, I think. So I just saw that in the last meeting.
Thanks,
Okay,
Diana.
thank you.
Thank you.
You wanna call the meeting?
I move we adjourn. That's the last time, I move to adjourn the meeting.
Yay.
That master plan, that's the thing. Like this.